people don't like HOAs. They don't like condo boards because there are a lot of different, it's like the government. There's too many people in the pot trying to give an opinion, and it always just comes out bad, and they always end up spending more money than they should have.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show, Shawn. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about home seller regrets. So we're talking a lot about buyer regrets. What regrets do sellers have when it comes to selling their house? We're going to be talking about an HOA lawsuit. Shawn, do you know what malicious compliance is?
Ooh, that's a good one.
We are going to get into people. You think HOAs follow the rules? Well, what happens when someone comes after you and the homeowner follows the rule to a T just to tick off the HOA?
That's good.
Little revenge going on there. And then we're going to be talking about 3 houses throughout the world and whether Shawn Battle is in or out on those 3 houses. Shawn, let's start with an article from Zillow.com. They came out with a study that said nearly 9 in 10 first-time home sellers think that they could have gotten a better price by making different choices. Shawn, 4 different regrets. Number 1, pricing incorrectly. Number 2, ignoring curb appeal. Number 3, bad timing. Number 4, skimping out on repairs. So number 1, pricing incorrectly. Nearly 39, almost 40% of first-time home sellers wish that they would have done something different than set a higher list price. What are your is that surprising to you? Is that 40%? Is that number too low or too high, or kind of right where you think sellers have those regrets?
Yeah, this is nationwide, so I think 40% is probably right on. I'll tell you what, this is the hardest part of listing a property, is figuring out what the price is, because there's so many things that go into this. And especially like, in our area, you have small houses compared to big houses, and houses
let me just jump in here. It says, the most common thing first-time home buyers wish they would have done differently is to set a higher price.
A higher price?
So
really? Okay.
39. I think, we're coming out of like a frenzy market.
Yeah.
And so I guess it makes sense, right? Almost half the sellers wish they had gone with a higher price. So does that mean almost half wish they had gone with a lower price, or were happy with the price that they were at?
Yeah, I mean, this is the toughest thing. If you price too high, you will sit on the market. You'll end up getting less than you should have. If you price too low in a market that's not pushing prices up, then you have to be happy with the price you set it at, because it might not get pushed up. So it's this fine line.
Do you think people were so happy that they got their house sold where they're like, wait a second, we sold our house in 5 days. We should have priced higher, because if we could have sold it in 5 days, we could have made 10 more thousand if we had, waited a little bit longer.
That's always the wonder, but I mean, maybe you priced it right and that was the best that the market was going to yield. I always tell my clients, listen, the first weekend is our best opportunity to get the best contract that we can. So what we want to do is price it right, get the marketing out in time, push people into the open houses, get as much frenzy as we can get, and hopefully get as much interest as we can and get multiple contracts. Those multiple contracts will get you waived appraisals, waived home inspections, and higher prices. And that's what you want. That first weekend is really key. So then you have to think, all right, well, what is the market yielding right now? Right now in our area, we're seeing low inventory. But if you price it too high, it's going to sit. People know the values, and when they walk through these places, they're like, well, this is overpriced, because they're looking at these houses constantly every day, and they know what they're willing to pay for what. And that's the tough thing. It's always the hardest thing, is to get the price right. And sometimes I say it's better to price it slightly under the market if you've got one of these markets where the supply is lower, because that will tend to attract more people and get it up. If you price it too high, people will still come. But a lot of people, what happens is they feel like buyers, for instance, oh man, it's overpriced, but will they really take a lower offer? Should we even offer? You would think that a lot of home sellers will say, oh, well, they'll just offer what they want to offer. And that's not always the case, because a lot of times buyers will be like, well, it's overpriced, they're not going to negotiate, blah, blah, blah. I always encourage them to put an offer in, but you never know. And so what you're doing by overpricing is actually kicking yourself in the foot by not getting the value you could have gotten by overpricing.
The pricing argument reminds me of home inspection repairs and counter offers. You ever send a counter offer and it just gets accepted immediately?
Yes.
And you're like, oh.
Maybe I should have tried harder.
Or you send over the home inspection list and then they instantly sign it. We can, go through that till, we're blue in the face of, oh, well, if I just gone higher, I could have gotten more. It does get to that tipping point where the deal's not going to work anymore. And, Zillow also notes in their report that in January, nearly 1 in 4 listings had a price cut. So if I'm thinking this, okay, yeah, a lot of homes are going down in value price. But I think it's a little misleading because think about the homes that are listed in January, at least the ones that have been on the market for long enough where it commands a price drop. It's the houses that were listed in December, the ones that were listed in November, October, the ones that have been sitting on the market that are doing the price drops. I bet if they, did a study in April or May about how many homes are doing price drops, it's going to be much less than 22%.
Yeah, and that's a typical thing for that time of year. It's a harder time to sell, and naturally, if you're on the market during that time and you have 70 days on the market, you want to come down on that price. So that's the typical thing that happens in January. Those people, those outliers that have been sitting there, you got problems with it. You've got an overpriced property, and that's typically what happens in that time frame.
Shawn, you'll like regret number 2, ignoring online curb appeal. We're not talking about, driveway front lawn. We're talking about first impression, listing photos, virtual tours. Almost 2 in 5, 39%, think better listing photos could have boosted their bottom line, while 1 out of 4 first-time sellers think that a virtual tour could have helped them sell their house for more.
100%. It all depends on your pictures. Your pictures have to look phenomenal. And we've always used professional photographers for 12 years now or 13. As long as the service has been available, we've been using it. But there's still agents that don't. And there's different markets that I look at that the pictures are awful. And what people don't understand is there is a process in preparing your home. Yeah, it's great to have good pictures, but if your pictures have a lot of furniture and a lot of stuff on the walls and too much, then they're not going to come out good. So you have to pull that stuff back and then take your pictures. You have to get your lighting right. There's a lot that goes into it. It's an art form, right? And the photographers that we use, they're fusing multiple pictures together to get the best lighting, and that's what we want. There are just so many bad listings out there, so many bad realtors out there. I'm sorry to say it, but there are. And, typically it's in markets that aren't as strong as ours, where we have a lot of competition with our agents. We have to perform. We have to do well. If you look at some of these other markets, the pictures are just so horrible. And naturally, people anymore are not going to look at it. When I first started, it was like one picture of the front of the house. That's all you could have on the MLS. And so people were just taking it with their own camera or whatever. But could you imagine going to a house now and not knowing what to expect on the interior? It's impossible. So you have to have a 3D tour, in my opinion. You have to have a virtual tour. This is the stuff that people want to do. They want to go through it online before they get their butt off the chair. They want to know everything about it. And if you have buyers, they've researched these properties more than you have when you're there. They know everything about them. So it's important to have a great online presence.
Final note is Zillow says that listings that also include a 3D home virtual tour or an interactive floor plan get 69% more page views and 80% more saves on Zillow.
There you go.
Number 3, regret number 3 by first-time home sellers. Bad timing. 1 out of 4 home sellers said that they wish they had listed at a different time. Pretty straightforward. I think if you were to interview 4 people, one of them said, yeah, I wish we didn't sell in November. Wish we didn't sell in January. Regret number 4, skimping on repairs. Shawn, this one is interesting. They say repairs, but it's also home improvements and repairs. So what are those small projects or big projects that you're kind of pushing off? You're saying, I'll just let the next buyer do it. Where if you had done it, you would have sold for more money faster, and it would have been a better payoff.
Absolutely. We go through the houses and we tell them, listen, this is what you should do to make this property shine. And if it's not shining, the buyers are going to see it. They know what a good project is. They know what a bad project is. They know what a good look is. They know what a bad look is. So if you think you can get away with, let's just kind of not do that and let's put the money here. I'm telling you, if you put the money into it, it'll pay you back. It'll pay you back not only by price, but time on the market and less repairs on the home inspection. So my opinion always is to get the repairs done correctly the first time. before you hit the market so that there isn't a pushback, because the last thing you want to happen is, one, a renegotiation of this contract. I mean, I've seen home inspection contingencies just blown up, and we both have, for like 20 grand, 25 grand. And we're like, all right, forget that. That deal's done. Right. So that's what you don't want to happen. Once you have something under contract, you want to keep it under contract. How do you keep it under contract? By doing the things that you needed to do before you get into these negotiations. And one of the major things that I always tell my clients is, like, go and get your HVAC system certified, right? Just have an HVAC technician in. Let's make sure it's working. Let's have the receipt at the home inspection, because one thing that home inspectors are not is HVAC technicians. So just do that. It's a $250 charge. If it's a little more, okay, they have to fix things, but you're pushing it up front so that you're not doing it later.
You really got to be careful about what renovations and upgrades you are doing before you're selling. And Shawn, there was a report that came out in 2022 that looked at the cost versus value report in terms of sinking money into a renovation and how much you can get back. I don't know if I'm fully on board with this, because they said that the number one thing that you can do to recoup the most amount of money when it comes to improving your property is to replace your garage door. Average job cost $4,041, resale value $3,769, so you can recoup 93% of the cost recouped. So I'm a little leery of any report that says garage door replacement is the best ROI for your house. I've never seen that anywhere else. And maybe if you get a group of, management consultants to run numbers on Redfin and Zillow, you can analytically come up with these numbers. And I think that's what they did. But in reality and in real life, I don't think that's the best bang for your buck.
Best bang for your buck, in my opinion, number one, paint. Best bang. Number two, light bulbs. Just go and replace your light bulbs. Make it light and bright in there. It's cheap. Although light bulbs have gotten expensive. I went the other day to go pick up light bulbs. A 4-pack was $15.
Yeah.
Like, that's double the price.
I spent $80 at Home Depot getting light bulbs the other day.
That's crazy.
Let's move on to our next topic. This comes to us from boardpanda.com. Person maliciously complies with HOA rules, ends up costing them 16% of the HOA income. This is a little bit of a long and convoluted story, so I will try to give you the short and simple version. A homeowner installed a security camera on the outside of their property to watch their front entrance and their cars, and part of the camera showed the neighbor's property on either side. And so they have this gray out feature. We can literally gray out parts of the viewing, so you're only viewing your property, not someone else's. One of the neighbors said, yeah, don't worry about it. The other neighbor was on the HOA board, and she said, yeah, you can't do that. They got an HOA letter, said that they're going to, if they don't cease and desist, that they're going to come after them. And of course, they did not cease, nor did they desist. And the HOA got an attorney involved, and the homeowner, fought this because the HOA was saying that you are being a nuisance to your neighbor, which is against the bylaws. Of course, there was no HOA rule that said you can't have a home security system. The bylaw that they tagged was being a nuisance to your neighbor. And so they got, I think, their own attorney involved, and they basically just dragged out this case. It never actually went to court, but the HOA ended up spending $4,000 of the HOA's budget on an attorney that they hired to try to get rid of this security cameras. And finally, the people took down the security cameras when they received a very intimidating letter from the attorney. It said, you can no longer have security cameras on your house. They said, fine, we'll take it down. They do the annual HOA board meeting, and the board gets vilified for spending $4,000 to fight these cameras. And so the people keep it down for a couple months. And then what they do is they put the cameras back up. However, what they did was they installed a signpost and then installed the cameras on the signpost. So technically, they didn't install the cameras on the house, because the letter said from the attorney, you are not allowed to install cameras on your house. It said nothing about installing cameras on a signpost in the front lawn. And so the HOA is out $4,000. The neighbor's upset, and the homeowner has maliciously complied with the HOA's request. Shawn, what do you make of this whole situation?
Oh man, HOAs and power hungry people, right? This is what happens when power hungry people get into power and they're your HOA board. There was nothing in their bylaws that said you couldn't have a security camera. Nothing in it. It just so happened that the person that didn't want them or didn't want their privacy, whatever, lived right next door, and that person caused that HOA $4,000. So you have to be careful on who you elect to your board. People don't like HOAs. They don't like condo boards because there are a lot of different, it's like the government. There's too many people in the pot trying to give an opinion, and it always just comes out bad, and they always end up spending more money than they should have. No one's ever happy. It's always going to be one of these problems. I love how this guy fought it because I would have probably done the same thing. Listen, you don't have anything that says I can't have a camera. You're just intimidating me with a lawyer. And so he goes around it and puts it on a post. I think it's genius. Now, I don't know. I mean,
well, the person's a part of the own HOA. You know, his or her house is in the HOA. So I don't know if you're shooting yourself in the foot by costing your HOA $4,000 because this is your HOA. If you get a couple more capital expenditures, you might have to look at a special assessment.
Yeah, you're looking at a special assessment for your own property now, but it's when it comes down to it's like standards, right?
Do it on principle.
Do it on principle. You are just doing this because you personally don't want my camera there. There's nothing in the bylaws. So I want a camera. You don't want it on your property. Okay, well, I've grayed out the portion that shows your property. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. I have cameras on my property. I can see a little bit of my neighbors' properties, but no one's paying attention to that. No one cares except the person that is power hungry and a little bit crazy. And you always have those people out there. So this is what you get with some HOAs. Now, there's a lot of good ones, but people don't like HOAs. They don't like to be told what to do, what color they can paint. They bought into the neighborhood and they know that there's rules and regulations. But when they're there, they're like, don't tell me I can't cut down my tree. Don't tell me I can't,
Would you ever buy into an HOA?
I've lived in an HOA, but it was a very small one, so they didn't have too much power. I would. I don't mind an HOA because in some regards, it does keep your values and your properties looking good. So they have standards, right? And sometimes when you go to these places that don't have HOAs, you can see where the standards go down. You might see a car with no wheels in the front of the lawn, So are you willing to deal with that? Or would you rather have a little bit of rules to follow? And there's definitely places in Arlington right by my house where I'm like, my gosh, like the county has to do something about this, hoarding situations and that kind of thing. So they're right, I guess. I mean, until it comes a danger to somebody else, then they have the right to do it. And that's the thing is, you're owning a property, right? You own the land. Yes, there are county regulations and things like that, but this is your property. This is your domain. You should be able to do with it what you want.
Well, if that
to
house,
a certain extent,
if that house in Arlington is located in a spout-run watershed area, then the county can buy the property, like they just did to a house in Waverly Hills.
Oh yeah,
they just bought a house for about $945,000.
That's amazing. Do you know more about that?
They are trying to buy 38 houses over the next couple of years. They're going to buy houses that are in essentially flood prone areas. I don't know if it's technically a flood zone. And then they are going to raise the house and then turn the houses. I don't think there's going to be a structure on it, but it's just going to be a way for water to seep into the ground better than having a concrete house on the property.
So I wonder if they're going to redo all the pipes under that as well, or if they're buying that for that reason. Because my thought was like, all right, they're buying these properties. Are they going to demo these houses and create some sort of better structure underneath so that water flows better?
It could be. I don't know if it's going to be underneath. Yeah, there's not going to be any structure on the top, but I looked up the tax record of the owner and a lot of tax deferrals. I'm not sure I'm familiar with tax deferrals, but this individual homeowner had tens of thousands of dollars of tax deferrals that were due.
I'm not familiar with that either.
I mean, you talk about hoarder. It could be if you're a hoarder in Arlington, sell your property to Arlington County. I think they'll pay top dollar for it.
Well, and this brings up another topic. Sorry, we're kind of going off on this, but like, think about the people that have owned in Arlington and they bought for like $250,000 and now their house is worth $1 million and they're paying taxes now. They were paying taxes at the very beginning on $250,000, which equates to about $2,500 a year, right? Now they're paying it on $1 million, which is $10,000 a year, or more. So their tax assessed value over the last 20 years has gone up 4 times, 400%, whatever that is, right? So imagine that, like these people that are on a fixed income, they're a retired couple and they have this go up. There should be something there for people like that. And it brings up a good question, right? I don't mind paying taxes because Arlington is great, but at the same time, man, we pay a lot in taxes and they keep going up. They'll never go down. And it's like, should it be capped for certain people? Should it be capped for certain residents after you've lived here for so long? I don't know.
What's the benefit of increase in sales prices? Imagine you buy a house for $250,000 20 years ago and it's still worth $250,000. This is the value of living in such a desirable place like Arlington.
It is, and that's part of the gain of this. But
I don't feel bad for anyone has $750,000 worth of equity and has paid off their house that they bought for $200,000 in Arlington in 1980.
Yeah, I mean, but should taxes follow it? Why do taxes need to follow the value of the house? Because I understand there should be increases, but if the value of the house increased so quickly and then the taxes increase so quickly, is that fair? I don't know. I mean, this is a whole other discussion. Let's get back into the topic.
Well, I think the whole, person whose house value has gained $500,000, I think that person isn't really allowed to argue on having lower taxes. But if your house gains $500,000 in value and you're complaining about taxes, you can't have it both ways.
Right. But think about the person that has to move now because they can no longer afford the taxes. They're out there, right? They have to move from their house.
They're getting a check for $1 million because they own it outright.
But could you imagine those people that have lived there all their life and they don't want to leave? That's the other side of it. So I've seen it before, and that's just whatever.
Maybe they should have had an income for the past 20 years. But I mean, you're literally selling a house and making $1 million.
Right. But taxes are big. Anyways, we'll get into that discussion some other time.
Okay. Moving on. Let's get into in or out, whether Shawn Battle is in or out on 3 houses. I think we know if he's in or out on taxes. So Elon Musk plans to build his own Texas town. This comes to us from AD Architectural Digest. The site, called Snailbrook, will be a live-work community for the billionaire's company. So, Shawn, outside of Austin, Texas, Elon Musk has amassed maybe over 3,500 acres, but it could be closer to 6,000 acres. It's a planned town, because why build a community when you could simply build a town? And it's essentially a way for Elon Musk's workers of his various companies like SpaceX and The Boring Company, which are located near Austin, Texas, to live and work and commute easily to the company. Lots of benefits, and there'd be lower than market rate housing. So Snailbrook, not yet an incorporated township. There could be modular homes, there could be a public pool, gym, an outdoor area, essentially a place to live, work, play, all in the same area. Shawn, are you in or out on Elon Musk's planned town?
Oh man, this is a different one. This reminds me of back in the day when they used to, like, steel companies or Westinghouse or whatever. They'd have all of their workers live in these Sears and Roebuck houses, right? And so there were these planned communities and everybody was going to work, and it was great for that time. And now you go back and see them and you're like, wow, this is so weird. It's just such a weird thing. It's almost cult-like, and that's kind of how this feels for me. A little bit like, oh man, it could easily become a cult,
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, Reston's a planned community. There are good planned communities, and if they're done right, they can really prosper and they can do well. Am I going to buy a house there? Elon, give me a good job. Maybe I will. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to see some of the amenities and what's coming out in there,
An advertisement for Boring Company employees last year touted a 2 to 3 bedroom home for rent starting at $800 a month, while the median rent in the area is about $2,200 a month.
Interesting. Are they all for rent? That's a good point, right?
I think that's the point.
Okay.
Wow. They say for rent. I don't think it's going to be a for sale type of situation. But what I am seeing on the initial outlay is, if you're telling me that Elon Musk is advertising lower than median rent housing, basically housing that is more affordable for the everyday person, Elon Musk is helping to
Yeah.
house people
Affordable
at
housing.
a lower rate. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I think if someone is going to go out and buy 6,000 acres and then build housing and then advertise the housing for a reasonable price that's affordable and lower than normal, I think that's a good thing. Shawn, you think this is going to get some haters?
Absolutely. Everybody loves to hate this guy.
Are going to look at Elon Musk and say, how dare he try to help out people?
Absolutely, they will. They will demonize him for this, even though every jurisdiction that I know of right now is trying to get affordable housing for people. So he's doing it, and that's the thing is the government's always going to try to do it, but if the private enterprise tries and does it, they always usually do it better. Just let somebody else with money try to figure it out. The guy's a genius. I mean, love him or hate him, he's a genius. He's very smart. So I think that he can pull it off. He's pulled off a lot more than just this. And if you're going to build affordable housing for your workers, I think it's a great idea. This is what everybody needs. Everybody's looking for. Prices and rents have gone insane.
Speaking of that, he moved his operations from California to Texas a couple years ago because there were too many regulations, too many taxes going on. California, Texas has, a little bit looser laws when it comes to zoning and also no corporate income tax. Yeah. So definitely more beneficial for larger businesses like this. So definitely a story to watch. All right, let's move on to the next house. Shawn, this is also in Texas. This is a haunted house that is for sale for $125,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,100 square feet. I don't even know why I'm telling you how many square feet it is. All you got to do is scroll through the photos. It was listed about 19 days ago. It already has 140,000 views, as well as 3,000 saves. It is a haunted house. Every single room has something super creepy, including the walk-in closet with the full-on clown decapitated heads on the wall. Shawn, are you in or out on starting your haunted house business in Texas?
Matt, I'll just be blunt on this. I'm out. It's $125,000. Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket, but this place is disgusting. I mean, first of all, you're looking through it, you're like, all right, that's weird. Okay, that's weird. This person has an obsession with Halloween and death and whatever. The biggest reason I'm actually out on this is because there's big signs over every toilet, on every toilet, every wall that says, do not flush any toilet paper. Do not flush. What? No, I'm not buying. So first of all, you have plumbing problems or a septic problem. And that's just a telltale sign. And if somebody's living like this in this house, what else are they living? What else are they doing in there? Right. And so, no, I'm out.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know if someone's living in it. Let's think of it like a business.
Okay.
Would you buy a business for $125,000? Now, I will say it's probably a very seasonal business.
Yeah.
You probably do most of your business in the fall months. That being said, I'm out on it also. It's on a highway. It's
I was just going to say, that looks like a big highway right there.
I don't know what the market is for haunted houses in July. I don't know how many kids want to tour haunted houses in July. Yeah. So I'm out. It's disgusting. I think I would need a tetanus shot after leaving.
That's how I feel, yeah.
All right, let's look at our final property. This comes to us from the Instagram account, Cheap Old Houses. We are going all the way to Santiago, Spain for $126,000. You get 7 acres on a horse farm, consists of a house as well as 2 fully usable buildings. You can live out your Spanish fantasy of living in the countryside and being with nature at a fraction of the price of what it would cost you stateside. Shawn, are you in or out on 7-acre horse farm in Spain for the cost of a haunted house for $125,000?
Spain, I'm all in. I'll buy this one. I don't know much about it. I've never been to Spain, but I can only imagine. I've been very close, South France, but I like the, when you go to Europe, it's just a cool feel. It's just a great feeling. I love that kind of old country. And the stove looked like maybe from the 1800s there. Was that a stove or what was that? Anyways, doesn't even matter. It's acreage. There's farms. There's horses there. It's in Spain. It's only 118 euro or whatever it is, 118,000 euro. I'm buying it.
He's in.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is another situation where it costs 125 and then to do anything that you'd want to do, it's another 125. I think I'm just barely out, although I do love the acreage. I mean, this picture alone with the sink overlooking the pasture has almost got me sold. But
Matt, I think I can get you there. I think I
think-
can get you there.
okay, well, again, we go half in on it. 125 divided by 2.
Let's do it.
Math's not too good. Around maybe 75,000 or
Yeah.
so. I think we're in business.
Okay.
Is that 75,000?
No, it's less than that.
Less than that?
No,
Okay.
it's about
Again,
60.
math's not too good. Is your math good? Let me know if your math is good in the comment section below if you made it this far. Thank you so much for watching. For Shawn and myself, until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.